Namaste. Welcome, Pastor Rekha Reddy, members old and new, to FLO Hyderabad 2021's first ground event. Let us start by paying obeisance to our beloved motherland. Please rise for the national anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Jai Hind. Before we begin, a gentle reminder to keep your masks on, except the person at the mic, and maintain physical distancing through the duration of your stay here. Hope all of you have collected your COVID safety kits. Thank you for obliging. Direction and clarity are most important for organizations like ours, where every member, each one, is an achiever in her own right. As the various committees worked side by side with each other, albeit remotely, in the last 6 months that have been like none other in the 20 years history of the chapter, we learned several things. To synergize our unique talents, to overcome our shortcomings together, and work towards our shared vision, led by one person who believed in the strength of purpose of the organization, the one voice that never said no, the one smile that nothing or no one could erase, the one spirit that didn't flag despite the very, very obvious obstacles. Please join me in applause as I invite, on behalf of all of you, FICCI FLO Hyderabad Chairperson 2020-21, Usharani Manne, to come to the dais.
Thank you, Priya, for such nice words. Good afternoon, past chairs, FLO members, and our special invitees. It feels so good to see you ladies here, all bright and beautiful, with beaming smiles that are lighting up the hall. Thank you so much for joining us. The rule of thumb is first the introduction of the new office bearers and then an assignment of duties. Thanks to COVID-19, the first part could not happen the way it was meant to. But I'm proud and overwhelmed to say that the second part, that of the working for the organization, has been relentless over the past 6 months. Maybe it was meant to be this way, that I have the honor of introducing you all with your achievements and specialties. As some of you may know, preparation for the next year starts at least 3 months in advance, which means I was working full-time on this from January itself. I had a clear-cut vision. The year's calendar of activities was formed up, speakers' confirmations were in place, the various committees were formed, and now all of us were looking forward to a spectacular 2020-21. Come April, everything changed. Indoors was the only place we could be. Total lockdown meant no meetings, no activities, no looking for partners. We were clueless, staring down a tunnel that seemed endless. But that's the wonder of the human spirit. The virtual change of guard was announced and the enthusiasm became palpable. Yes, we had to reorganize our calendar, We had to teach ourselves the mechanism of planning and executing an online event. The infrastructure had to be put in place. The SOPs had to be drawn up and understood. Between 1st and 15th May, we had n number of Zoom meetings and trial runs. And come D-Day, everything went off like clockwork. The onus was on the teams to do a good job, and they did a perfect one. And even today, 6 months down the line, continue to up their game, learning to do things smartly and differently. Today's ground event, with so many protocols in place, is an example of their innovative spirit. How can I forget the obstacles we faced? The biggest challenge was subscription renewal. So many questions were asked. The main one being, when there are no physical events, why then is the organization expecting the annual membership renewal fee? What they needed to understand was that to continue with the good work, the organization has to meet fixed expenses, and it is just a matter of time before things bounce back. Our EC members took up the responsibility and made calls to members, explaining to them, and succeeded in ensuring that the subscription level was maintained as in a normal year. It was a huge effort that needed a lot of coordination and personal commitment, but it was done. The next challenge was the induction of new members. Referrals came in from everywhere. Follow-up was diligent, and 7 rounds of virtual interviews later, Hyderabad chapter stands top in India in new member recruitment with 100 new entrants. Thank you. And the quality of entrants is top class. Social outreach. I never imagined that we could do anything this year, but the team's planning during the lockdown was so good that as soon as it was lifted, the various plans started to actualize. Of course, the nature of the work demanded for us to visit villages and to visit universities and meet farmers and panchayat heads to understand their training requirements, but all was done, and we have so much to show today. So many success stories like these have been written over the last 6 months. Team, all this could happen because you stood shoulder to shoulder with me. You did not let me down. You made me lift my head up proudly, made it possible for me to prove that Hyderabad chapter is not only the biggest by numbers, but also the most committed. I feel it is my minimum responsibility to call you on stage and introduce you to the members and let them see the people behind all that is happening in the chapter. So, as your name is called out, please collect your EC badge from Priya and come up to where am I. I would love to have a picture with you, post which we all together for a group picture, one that should have been taken 6 months ago. Priya, please take over. Thank you. Thank you, Priya. We are moving to past years.
Thank you, Usha, for doing me the honor of asking me to invite my colleagues on stage. Usha, can you turn it around once for those who haven't seen? Just flip it around. So ladies, this is from Tirumani, the Flow Assistant brand that we have been working with. We would like to now invite Past Chair Rekha Reddy to please come on stage. Thank you, Rekha. We'll now start the introductions with the core committee. Senior Vice Chairperson Uma Chigurupati, a multifaceted personality who has put Hyderabad in the Guinness Book of Records not once, but multiple times. Uma? Vice Chairperson Shubhra Maheshwari, the lady who lit up this very stage all through last year with her elegant presence and sparkling wit. Immediate past chairperson Sona Chetwani, who set the bar high, bringing home the National FLO Award for Best Policy Intervention last year. She couldn't be here, but this hall radiates her love for all of us and FLO, of course. Shubhra, will you take it to her? You can carry her badge.
And now, I take over once again to introduce a dynamic personality of this year's team, Priya Gazdar. Energetic, enigmatic, admirable, meticulous, sincere, and dedicated. Believe me, I had to look into the dictionary. That's our honorary secretary, Ms. Priya Gazdar, who not only works to perfection, but stays calm under the storm and works as if there's no tomorrow. She is a gift to those around her with her impeccable style of working and refreshing, sunshine-like smile, always under any circumstance. That's Priya Gazdar. Can we have Priya's badge, please?
Thank you for those wonderful words, Shubhra. Moving on, Sujita Chittiala, the youngest, but by far the most meticulous and methodical, treasurer par excellence, and today, the glamazon of FICCI FLO Hyderabad. Joint Treasurer, Bindu Reddy, professional to the core with a strong sense of systems. Beauty with brains, an ever-ready helping hand as I personally know it, and a stickler for preparation, Joint Secretary Radhika Agarwal. Moving on to the Executive Committee, EC Head for Social Outreach, Radharani Sunkara, of the infectious smile, the impeccable work ethic, and the hard work behind our many social outreach programs this year. weaved magic, literally, with simply and silently enriching FLO Hyderabad with 100 new members in 6 months of the pandemic, no less. EC Head membership, the very talented Lalita George. Are we missing her here today? She did promise to pop in for a little bit. I'll take her medal on her behalf. With her sheer acumen for sales, she has made FLO Marketplace a viable branding and cross-promotional platform for members and a funds generator for FLO. She has made sure 50 brands advertised on FLO Marketplace. Gunjan Sindhi, EC Head, InHub, and FLO Marketplace. And she wanted me to plug in here, ladies, please send in ads for FLO Marketplace. Transitioning smoothly from on-ground events to virtual sessions and back now to ground events, or maybe even hybrid events, the lady does it all with a cool smile and a calm mind. Sarika Burugu, the ever-dependable EC Head Events. The lady behind the highly popular Tea Time Talks and Knowledge Nugget series, the lady who also gave us a wonderful time at Andamans last year, notwithstanding the cyclone, Ritusha, EC Head, Knowledge Labs 2. Elegant and methodical, she has taken up the responsibility of a brand new program and made a success of it in 3 short months. Nanda Rao Maganti, EC Head, FLO Mentorship Cell. The Nightingale of FLO Hyderabad, and the one behind the many logos that dot our invites and make our events possible. Vandana Shetty, EC Head Sponsorship. Vandana Peno. If our events are grabbing more and more eyeballs, it's because of her well-planned social media visibility measures. The very talented EC Head Social Media, UVL Ananda. Certified Glamazon, selfie expert, and feted interior decorator with an eye for all things fine living, Padma Somireddy, EC Head Retreat, promising us a great time in January 2021. Our EC members too contribute in no small measure to the organization. The highly committed, well-planned, and structure-oriented Sarita Chilakapati, EC member incubation. I don't think she's here. Monica Bhandula, EC member, Village Adoption Program, the heart, hands, and brain behind Tirumani, the flow-assisted brand of Cherial Crafts. She's also not here. The ever-smiling, ever-helpful organizer beyond compare, who can make any social outreach effort a success, Prashanti Shekhar, EC member, Skill Development. Soft, consistent, and accommodating with photo collage skills that make our social media come alive, EC member Simran Chabra. She hasn't come. Now this lady carries with her a bright ray of cool sunshine. It's like she's actually swallowed the sun, and the ability to get any task done without a fuss, EC member Rashmi Doshi. She had sent her regrets earlier, but not before getting the work done, and she couldn't stay away. Adept at organizing perfect to the T events, EC member, the vibrant Maya Patel. And finally, the lady who can convince even the biggest of names to say yes to come to FLO Hyderabad, the one of the serene presence, EC member Hira Rupani. We are missing her here today. Now that we are done with the badges, requesting the core committee, EC heads, and all EC members to please come to the stage for a group picture. First, the core committee with the badges on. Ladies will now take a short networking break. Please occupy your seats again by 2:55 for the main event. Until then, enjoy your videos, catch up with your friends, have a nice but safe time. Ladies, if you can all take your seats, please. Maintaining physical distancing. Namaste. On behalf of Chairperson Usharani Manne and her committee, I, Priya Gazda, Honorary Secretary, welcome you all to FLO Hyderabad's Power Hour 9, An Unequal World, the Uncomfortable Truth of Discrimination, with Nandita Das and Dr. V. Rukmini Rao. In today's world, where patriotism and nationalism, religion and identity are increasingly being blurred, hers is the voice that needs to be heard to move beyond our deeply ingrained prejudices and conditioning, to ignite a debate on these moot issues. Before we embark on the exciting journey, I request our eminent guests, past chairs, Chairperson Flo Usharani Manne, and Chairperson Y Flo Apurva Jain, to light the ceremonial lamp. I think Apurva is not here. Requesting Kamini Saraf, Rekha Reddy, Monica Agarwal. Yes. If you could just stay on there for a few minutes to allow us to take a couple of pictures. Core committee, please get ready for the next one. The core committee, please. Thank you, everybody. I would now like to request Ms. Nandita Das, Dr. V. Rukmini Rao, and Usharani Manne, Chairperson, to please take their seats on the dais. All right.
That's fine. That's fine.
Chairperson Usharani Manne will now deliver her welcome address.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Namaste. It's with utmost pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our illustrious speakers, Ms. Nandita Das and Dr. Rukmini Rao, special invitees, past aides, FLO members, and press. Thank you all so very much for joining us here this afternoon. It doesn't mean a lot for the core and executive committees and me. We have really worked hard to put this program together with all COVID safety protocols in place. And seeing you all here is the best encouragement. Since we had to restrict attendance to 100 guests, we are taking the event live on YouTube for the rest of our members to view. This may be the format we will follow in the coming months. I'm coming before you physically for the first time after taking over from the last chairperson in May this year. It is making me emotional, to be honest, to see so many familiar and friendly faces. I would also like to put on record my thanks to all of you for attending our virtual events and workshops. As you know, we have thus far hosted 8 power hours on topics that range from spirituality, corporate leadership, health, sustainable fashion, politics, and sports with masterful personalities. and an equal number of knowledge labs that dealt with subjects such as yoga, mental health, handlooms, handicrafts of India, grassroots innovations, solopreneurship, breast cancer awareness. We have also had entrepreneurial talks on a wide range of subjects, tea time talks to draw out the hidden talents of our own members, and fireside chats with our past chairs in the Game Changer series. Earlier this month, we had the honor of hosting Union Minister of Jal Shakti, Shri Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, for a national roundtable discussion with FLO President Jahanvi Pookan and chapter chairs from across India. Our next event on the 27th of this month is an interaction with Rahul Shivashankar, Editor-in-Chief of Times Now, on the topic of meritocracy. Do set a reminder for yourself. It's going to be a virtual event. You would agree, I'm sure, that we have kept you gainfully and meaningfully engaged. Our blueprint for the next 6 months is also firmly in place. So you can expect an equally interesting time ahead. Our social outreach program for grassroots is included a vermicompost and organic pesticides making training for 60 women farmers in Mominpet village. For the urban workforce, we organized a free online course on how to start a business in collaboration with Sleepwell Foundation. 225 women have availed it. We mobilized 25 girls and 30 boys for Government of India's DDU GKY free vocational training cum placement guarantee program facilitated by McLean Skill Academy. The incubation and mentorship programs are going on full swing. We just concluded a boot camp, micro accelerator, and one-to-one mentorship for 5 of our members as part of our MOU for incubation with CIE at IIIT. The graduates got the opportunity to make a business pitch to potential investors. The VHub Flow Incubation Program is also gearing up for a takeoff. Mentors and mentees are being matched pan-India as part of Flow Mentorship Cell programs. We are also tied up with NutriHub, the incubator at Indian Institute of Millet Research for technical, infrastructure and business support. We have signed an MOU with IIT Hyderabad to establish an entrepreneurial ecosystem between Flow and iTech to foster and nurture Flow women entrepreneurs and support them in building deep tech-enabled, sustainable, scalable, and profit-making businesses. The details will reach you soon. The Flow Virginia Tech Mentorship Development Training and Certification Program is scheduled for 3rd, 8th, and 15th December. You can enroll for a nominal fees of 11,800 rupees. Do hurry if you are interested. 27th November is the last date. The details are already with you. A free virtual workshop for teachers, Teach Them Young, is being organized nationally on the topic of personal safety of children on 29th and 30th of November. 90 teachers have already enrolled for it through our chapter. Do put the word out in your circles. Under the National Flow Village Adoption Program, we are working with the Cherial Craftisans and have organized them into a brand, Tirumani, and enabled their presence on online portals such as Weave Smart, as well as helping them with marketing promotion. We also launched Reach Out, a positive mental health initiative with Roshni NGO, under which we are organizing awareness sessions for members and non-members. Our members contributed 300 saplings and tree gourds to Government of Telangana's Haritharam project. Many thanks to all the members involved in these efforts. Our membership team was instrumental in adding 100 new members to the FLO Hyderabad family in the last 6 months, which is telling of the brand equity of FLO. I can see some of our new members here. Welcome you all. FLO Marketplace was re-established as a branding and cross-promotional platform with the concerted efforts of the team. It has featured 50 brands thus far and has a waiting list. Congratulations to both the teams. India has always prided herself for her diversity. We all know diversity breeds creative thinking, democratic communities, and innovation. It makes better citizens and results in a more vibrant and prosperous society. But perpetuated by discrimination, we are striking at the very roots of India's uniqueness. We felt a productive, meaningful dialogue can help us become more aware of this very important truth. And the fearless Nandita was our only and obvious choice. because her thoughts have created a widespread awareness. Her choices have always upheld her beliefs, and her voice has become the conscience of so many. To talk with her, we again could only think of one person from Hyderabad, the very accomplished Dr. V. Rukmini Rao, because her work in the area of discrimination and equal rights is unequaled for its widespread effectiveness. Ladies, a very cordial welcome to both of you. Priya and Radhika will tell you more about our guests. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Usha. In 2018, she marched on the Cannes red carpet with 81 female filmmakers from around the world to protest against the inequality and gender gap in cinema and society. But even 20 years ago, as she was starting out in her film career, she had the conviction to play nuanced roles on taboo subjects such as same-sex love in Fire, gang rape victim in Bhavandar, on baby harvesting in Kamli, and Naxalism in Hazar Chaurasi Ki Maa. Her fearlessness has made her a social advocate with a voice that is heard and respected. It is her fiery passion that defines Nandita Das, and her thirst to make a difference is more than evident in the choices she has made, both professionally and personally. Nandita has acted in over 40 feature films in 10 Indian languages and in 3 professional plays. Her debut directional feature, Firak, won her bouquets of awards in India and overseas for tackling sectarian violence head-on but sensitively. She has been a columnist for a national weekly and made her debut as a playwright and theatre director with Between the Lines, a play about gender inequality. A master's in social work, she unapologetically advocates issues of social justice and human rights. She has been the face of several social campaigns, including India's Got Color. She has been the chairperson of the Children's Film Society India and on the jury of Cannes Film Festival in 2005 and 2013. A TEDx speaker, she has also been invited to speak at MIT and at Tufts University. The French government conferred her with their prestigious civilian award, Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters, in 2008. She is the first Indian to be inducted into the International Hall of Fame of the International Women's Forum at Washington, D.C. In August 2018, Power Brands awarded Nandita Das the Bharatiya Manavta Vikas Puraskar for being a polymath with a purpose, advocating issues of communal harmony, peace, and social justice, especially for women, children, and the marginalized others through various platforms. Welcome, Nandita.
Thank you.
And I left out a lot more, I must say that.
It was already too long, I was going to
Joint Secretary Radhika Agarwal will now introduce Dr. V. Rukmini Rao.
Thank you, Priya. Dr. Rukmini Rao is the Executive Director, Gramya Resource Center for Women, and member of the board at Aid Ed Action International. She is also a co-founder member, Saheli Resource Center for Women, New Delhi, set up to support women facing domestic violence. As a women's rights activist, she participated and shaped campaigns to bring in pro-women legislation, including increased punishment for rape for persons in authority, prevention of sati, the PCPNDT Act to prevent sex selection during pregnancy, and recognition of domestic violence as a crime. Through Gramya Resource Center, she works towards preventing trafficking of girl babies internationally and to promote child rights, education, as well as adolescent girls' rights. She has previously worked with the Deccan Development Society to promote women farmers' rights, prevent child marriages and child labor, and in Medak district, and also worked with women farmers across many states, and had set up National Coalition Maqam to support rights of women farmers. She is a managing trustee, Center for World Solidarity, working across 6 states to promote human rights, sustainable livelihoods, and environmental protection. She has won the Week's Woman of the Year Award in 2014 and their Social Impact Award in 2015. Gramya has won the Best NGO Award in Mandal in 2015 and the Best NGO Award in Telangana State in 2016. She received the Balika Bandhu Girls Advocacy Award in 2017 and the Heroes of Hyderabad Award in 2018. Rukmini is a trustee of the UK charity Lepra and chair of Lepra Society in India and works to prevent and address leprosy and other NTDs. She is currently trustee, Indians for Amnesty International Trust. Thank you, and over to Priya to take the session forward.
Thanks, Radhika. Before we start the session in a few minutes, Chairperson Usharani Manne will present mementos to our 2 illustrious guests. May I have Rekha Reddy, past chair, on stage, please?
Yeah, I will go in front of the bunny better. मेरा है आपका है this is yours. Yeah, आपका लो. This is the Chedier North. One minute, this I've been eyeing. I was saying क्या है वहाँ पर. Yeah, it's lovely.
So both the memento and the badge are from Tirumani, a flow-assisted brand of Chedial crafts.
And there's one more memento from Rekha Reddy.
Rekha Reddy is... So that's a book created by Rekha Reddy. Treasurer Sujita Chittiala and EC Head in Hub and Flow Marketplace Gunjan Sindhi will get the autograph sheet signed to treasure memories of this beautiful afternoon. Thank you, Rekha Reddy. No, I think they're exchanged. They're exchanged.
ये just want to do autograph something. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Hope all of you have collected your COVID safety kits. Do remember to keep your masks on and maintain physical distancing. Your kits contain a sanitizer. Please use it liberally. Thank you for understanding. And now, Over to the wonderful ladies on stage to start the conversation we're all so looking forward to.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me here today and for giving this opportunity to meet all of you and to meet Nandita, who I just mentioned we have common friends. Yes. So I'm very happy to see you here, Nandita. Just to set the discussion, I wanted to say a few words before we get on with the conversation. You know, when I went to university and studied psychology, there was a subject called prejudice. And then what we learned there is about the prejudice that white people show against black people in the south of America. And then we learned about the Second World War, and we learned about how Germans were discriminating against Jewish people. But we never learned one word about discrimination in our own societies. I mean, partly that was because the books and the textbooks we studied were all imported and we only followed that. Fortunately, things have changed. And today, the universities are teaching much more important things which are of concern to young citizens of this country. The reason I'm saying this is to just, a realization that we see things around us at a distance, but what is beneath us, on the left, on the right, in our own families, we very often miss the bus. So I think today's discussion, I hope, will bring back to us a reminder of what we are and how we can improve and contribute to our own societies. Our country actually guarantees equality to all. But we all know that from independence, we have continued to have caste discrimination, which we know about. We read about attacks on women, on men because of that. We know that there are increasing discriminatory feelings created towards members of different communities, and we'll talk about that later. I'm sure, Nandita, you will want to say more about it. So we really have to think about, our constitution says no to discrimination, which is a legal point. But how do we make it a de facto situation? What is it that you and I can do to make this happen? So I hope today's discussion will also move us in that direction. It's not only against social groups that we discriminate. Our society is completely a role-bound society and a rule-bound society in some ways. So if you step out of your boundary, if you do something which is a little different, I ran away from home when I was 24. So if you are a single woman, there's no end to the kind of discrimination you can face. So how do we talk about it? I used to joke in those days, say if I like somebody, I don't tell them I'm divorced. Because, it just creates a lot of hangama in their lives. But that's not the case, really. I mean, you talk about yourself and your honesty and state who you are so that people learn to accept others like yourself. Then the last point I want to make is, today, because of politics, we are finding huge voids between communities. And that is entirely due to politics. The city of Hyderabad, where we grew up, we didn't know that there was a community called Muslims and Hindus, because when you went to school, you had friends and they had names. And you had festivals. So all festivals of all kinds were celebrated in all homes. My mother was a great one for celebrating Christmas. So that kind of situation has changed entirely today. In my office, in front of my office, I found a sign which said, "House to let, not for Muslims." Then I looked at it one day, second day I couldn't bear it, a third day. It belonged to an elderly person. Then I went to her and I said, "Look, if you have this, you will go to jail. It's unconstitutional. You shouldn't be doing this." I was really annoyed. And I was trying to help her to understand. She said, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian, so I didn't want peace." Then you should say, "We don't want people eating meat here," instead of talking about communities. But we know this divide is going on. So I hope that Nandita, with your commitment, with your views, you will share with us and that you will tell us more about how you feel about this whole situation. Thank you. Usha, would you like to start? Yeah.
Hi, Nandita.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome to FICCI FLO Hyderabad.
Thank you so much.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Just tap it, you'll know whether it's working. It's on? Okay, yeah.
No. It is on. You just need to speak into the mic.
You can just give your mic. There. It's working. It's working.
You have to put it like this. As it is.
Yeah, I want to start the conversation first with me, Nandita. You have been quite outspoken about exclusion and discrimination. When and how did the first strings of this thought process begin? And was it a moment of epiphany, or did it happen through a long process of reflection?
I have to start right from my childhood. Whatever family you grow up in, that becomes your normal. So my father is a painter, mother writer. In that sense, it was a different kind of childhood, which for me wasn't. But when I grew up and I looked around and I reflected, I realized that I was very fortunate that I had so much space to question things, the fact they were just inclusive by nature. At that time, these big words were not even discussed. But there's discrimination, secularism, feminism, being liberal. It was just a way of life. You were just inclusive. You were liberal. You were all of this without knowing the exact word. And when you learn the words later, but you learn to be all of that more naturally, I think you internalize it better. So as a child, I saw, my father's, on his exhibition day, I remember in every exhibition probably, he would bring food for everyone, and then his carpenter, his framer, our house help, everybody would sit on the floor in the gallery and eat together. So when that is what you grow up with, you think it's natural. When there were too many clothes, my parents would sit and, sort of clean them with that house help. Or if there were guests at home, my father would say, today you're going to go and wash the glasses because there's just too much. So we never questioned. We thought, discrimination wasn't something that came naturally, at least directly at home. But the problem is when you have a certain world, you think that's the way the whole world is. And then the rude shock comes because you grow up, you start looking elsewhere, you realize that's not the norm. That there is a world out there that is deeply prejudiced, discriminating. That doesn't mean that we don't have our prejudices. I still fight my own prejudices. I have plenty. We tend to generalize. We tend to say, I'm not going to share with you all my prejudices, but you can tend to say, this community is always thinking of money, or this community is more corrupt, or whatever. We all have our little prejudices. But broadly, I grew up with a lot more openness than one sees around. So in some sense, the first time that I started giving it words, or I started engaging it in a more conscious way, I would say was when I started doing street theatre with Safdar Hashmi. He was a theatre activist, he did street plays. I was 17, very idealistic, performing, the plays on street corners, in bastis, in offices. I used to really think we are changing the world. But we were taking up issues of, women's rights, on economic divides, on secularism or education policy, and we would talk about these issues, we would discuss it. So slowly the ideas of discrimination, inclusion, all of these ideas started forming, and I started using those words and understanding why they were important. So in some sense, I see that phase as my first political training. The second one came with my doing masters in social work. A degree doesn't make you a better or worse social worker. I've always said that. But what it does, it exposes you to other realities that you may not be privy to. And the minute you're thrown into those other realities, you realize that your life and their life is different. And you realize there is a discrimination. That, for instance, caste, what you talked about. I grew up feeling very happy about the fact that in my family, nobody talked about caste. So when I was much younger, I would tell, if I would travel abroad and people would say, is there casteism, is there caste system in your country? And I would say, yes, there is. But in my family, we don't care about caste. No, I don't even know what my caste is. My parents have never talked to me about it. It plays no role in my life. later on, when I started actually engaging with these issues, I realized that to say that I don't care about caste or not to even think about caste itself is such a privilege that only if you are in an upper caste can you say that. Because to a person who has to live with that tag day in and day out, not a single minute goes by before you're not made aware that you're of a certain caste, is a whole different life. And that kind of hit me in some ways, and my engagement, and I realized, oh my God, the school I go to, the colleges I went to, the work I do, there are so few people of the lower caste. I mean, we don't even have a right word for it, actually. The fact we even have to call it lower and upper just in some sense perpetuates it. But I don't know what the politically correct word is also for that. But the fact that there is such a natural exclusion that happens that makes you stop looking at it. And you can very comfortably think that it's a very liberal thing to feel that you don't care about caste because it doesn't impact your life. And the irony of that started hitting me after I did my master's in social work, and I was exposed to a lot more realities that were not part of my reality. And then I thought, oh my God, there's discrimination everywhere. I became much more aware of my privileges and the divides that have been normalized. The third, I would say, was Fire. To do a film like Fire, I mean, I didn't know there was going to be a second film when people would say that it's so bold of you to do Fire as your first film. But, I didn't want to be an actor. It was not part of my dream or ambition or plan or nothing. I was very happy working with NGOs. That's where I met, organizations like Saheli and Sangat and Jagori and people like Kamla Bhasin and all of these great feminists who really opened doors for us and our minds and our thoughts. So I was very happy doing all of that work. And then when I did Fire, it was not just the experience of doing the film, but the questions that came up after that, where I started realizing that there was such a fear of the unknown. There was such deep homophobic ideas, that there was so much prejudice, that people were more comfortable in hating and killing and trolling and lynching, but are more uncomfortable with same-sex love. They were uncomfortable with two people being in love. So I think that made me aware again that we are so deeply hypocritical, we have so many double standards as a society, that we are so comfortable discriminating people just because they are different from us. So, I mean, there have been series of such things that have kind of reaffirmed my desire to engage with these issues. And because with Fire, I realized that there is such a deep othering that we do. There is always a them and us that we create, whether in basis of language, whether color of your skin, whether sexual preference, whether caste, whether religion, gender. I mean, there's no dearth of forms of discrimination that we have just grown up with. Often we don't even question them. Many of us are mothers, and I remember when I was pregnant, my greatest fear was that my child is going to ask me all these uncomfortable questions, and how am I going to reply to him? At that time I didn't know it was him or her. In fact, I thought it was going to be a her. I thought I would go and make this girl, this feisty, amazing woman who's going to have all the freedom in the world. And then came this boy. And I was like, okay, what do you do with boys? Like, how are you supposed to deal with them? All my plans have gone kaput. But I realized it's a greater responsibility, because with little boys, you have to make them sensitive and empathetic men who can go beyond these discriminations and who look at women as human beings and are not sort of defining them on the basis of their gender. So my own journey as a mother was also an important sort of milestone in some ways. So from fears of a pregnant woman thinking my child is going to ask me these uncomfortable questions and how am I going to deal with it, to my child actually asking those questions, to him growing and kind of normalizing some of that. He now knows there are poor people and there are rich people. We have more toilets and there are people defecating on the street, and he's kind of slowly normalizing, and that for me is creating more disturbance. I wish he would continue asking as many questions than not normalizing as we all have done. But when you see so much of discrimination all around you, and how much can you fight it? And you see everyone not fighting it, and you say, well, this is how it is, what to do? It's terrible, but we have to live with it. So I think it's a very, I feel very passionately about this subject, both through my film work, through my advocacy work, and through life. So there are moments, I won't say epiphany, but there are markers that have helped me reflect on it more. But it's an ongoing process of reflection.
Very well said, Nandita. My second question to you: historically, am I audible?
Just move it towards you.
Yeah, that
Art in its main forms has played a pivotal role in influencing thought. Activism, particularly social activism, is relatively a new concept. So which do you see as a more impactful tool of social change? And before you answer that, let's play a video you created as part of India's Got Colors campaign.
Okay.
So can we have the video, please?
Just to give a little background, this was just I just want to give a little background on this. So in 2013, I was approached by a Chennai-based organization called Women of Worth, and they had a campaign called Dark is Beautiful, and they asked me if I would support it. And I thought, here we were fighting, I felt, bigger issues, like whether it's female feticide and domestic violence and sexual harassment and, lack of choices that women have. And while being a darker person, not that I was not aware of it, but I didn't know whether it merited a standalone attention. And I was really wrong. They wanted just a photograph and a quote. I gave it to them. And then I think it just needed a face to the campaign, and by default I became the face of this campaign. And it had touched such a raw nerve, and so many, especially young women, who would come up to me, literally stop me on streets and say, thank you for doing this campaign because it makes me feel better about myself. And so many women were losing confidence purely because they were dark-skinned. So, but I was always uncomfortable with the name of Dark is Beautiful, because first of all, the burden of beauty on women is just too much. Why do we have to be defined by how we look? So, and also Dark is Beautiful was, I understand their logic because it was a response to Fair and Lovely. But, this whole thing of dark, I thought, would sort of reinforces it. So when in 2019, they asked me to do something for the campaign, and I said, why don't we call it now India's Got Color, because anyway diversity is being threatened at every level. So let's call it India's Got Color, because it's not about dark or light, this is beautiful, that is beautiful. Just be yourself and let's all be comfortable in our own skin, literally and metaphorically. That's how this campaign, we launched this campaign with a music video. And it was very organically, some Dharavi rappers came together, a musician came in this mix. There was another filmmaker, lots of actors. I literally called them and they all said, okay, we'll be part of it. So nobody can really claim who really made it. We all just put it together and I produced it and we called it India's Got Color. So that's the music video, largely for younger people.
इंडिया में जितने लोग उतने रंग, मगर फिर भी हम नहीं सुधरेंगे। हाँ?
देखा है तुम्हें ताने मारते हुए, धुतकारते हुए तुम्हें, हाँ, रंग का मजाक उड़ाते हुए तुम्हें, हाँ, देखा है तुम्हें ताने मारते हुए, धुतकारते हुए तुम्हें, हाँ, रंग का मजाक उड़ाते हुए तुम्हें, हाँ।
डेट के लिए काली गोरी लड़की चलेगी, पर शादी करना है तो गोरी लड़की से ही करेगा। बेटा तो सुन, तेरे अच्छे के लिए बोलो, नहीं तो तेरा बच्चा बड़ा होके तुझे गाली देगा। औरत अगर होगी गोरी, तेरी सोसाइटी में भी तेरा भाव बढ़ जाएगा।
देख बहुरानी गौर से सुन, मुझे गोरा बच्चा चाहिए, कान खोल के सुन। बेटा चाय ना पी, बच्चा काला हो जाएगा, इस दुनिया की भीड़ में अनजाना हो जाएगा। धूप में न जा, रंग मैला हो जाएगा, दादी की मेहनत का ठेंगा हो जाएगा।
देखा है तुम्हें ताने मारते हुए, धुतकारते हुए तुम्हें, हाँ, रंग का मजाक उड़ाते हुए तुम्हें, हाँ।
अरे यार देखो कौन यहाँ आ गया, सावला है रंग इसका, अंधेरा वो छा गया। लाइट मुझे अब बढ़ाना पड़ेगा, मेकअप मैन को बोल के इसको गोरा करना पड़ेगा। फोटो शॉप में भी मेहनत करना पड़ेगा, तभी इसका फोटो मैगजीन में छपेगा।
जज ने भी बोला तेरे अंडर टैलेंट बहुत है, पर तेरे जैसों को हम देते नहीं स्लॉट है। कला जो भी हो तेरा रंग तेरा लॉस है, जो यहाँ पे गोरा वही जाएगा टॉप पे। बस का नहीं कहीं और तू ध्यान दे, टैलेंट शो छोड़ के लग जा तू किसी काम पे।
ताने मारते हुए धुतकारते हुए तुम्हें हाँ, रंग का मजाक उड़ाते हुए तुम्हें हाँ। देखा है तुम्हें ताने मारते हुए धुतकारते हुए तुम्हें हाँ, रंग का मजाक उड़ाते हुए तुम्हें हाँ।
पर अब टाइम आ गया है रंग वंग को छोड़ने का, नीचा किसी को ना दिखाने का, कोई और करे तो उसको भी बोलने का, हर रंग को सेलिब्रेट करने का, क्योंकि
India's got color.
Just a fun music video, which was more a solidarity initiative to say that while there are people who are endorsing these lightning, products, there are also many others who believe that one should be celebrating any and every color. So that was the idea. So now to answer your question, I think it was about whether art or activism. Sorry, I've forgotten now.
Historically, art in its many forms has played a pivotal role in influencing thought. Activism, particularly social activism, is a relatively new concept. So, which do you see as a more impactful tool of social change?
Right. First of all, I think every step in the right direction is fantastic. So I wouldn't compare anything, whether it's at a policy level or at a grassroots level. In fact, I always say that let's not belittle anything, because everybody's effort, when it happens simultaneously, creates some tangible change. Art has existed as far back as the cave man and woman, because even at that time we have seen cave drawings. Why did they feel the need to express themselves through those drawings? Why did they even have to do them? Right? So I think the desire to express creatively is an inborn desire. In fact, that is our instinct. It's sad that our education system thinks of it as a co-curricular activity and throws it on the side. But actually the desire to express, whether it's through music or through painting or through writing or performing, dancing, all of these are very primal needs of human beings. In terms of activism, the word may be new, but this altruistic side of wanting to do something for others has also existed for as far back as we can think of. People may not have given, like today, when people sometimes, they say, how do we introduce you? Actor, director, activist. And I say, I don't do, any of these three full time. I do very little of all of it. So now, instead of activists, because I know real activists, so many of them, and I dare not compare myself, because they have dedicated their lives for it. So now there's a word called social advocate. So that's what I feel a little more comfortable. But finally, these are all words. The idea is that anything where you feel strongly about and you put yourself out there and you want to do something for the larger good. And many have done that. Many have done that away from the media light. Some of us do that much because we are in the public space. It helps to maybe spread it a little wider. But there are many who do very, very sort of deep grassroots level, difficult work on the ground. And given a chance, they would do that all over again, despite all their struggles. So I think both are important. I went through a phase when I started with Fire and did a few films, and suddenly I was being called to talk about various things, and it used to make me angry because I thought I used to do much more work earlier as a real activist, and nobody called me to talk about those issues, and now that I'm in film, suddenly I'm being called. So I thought it was extremely superficial, and I used to keep giving them other names, and they would say, no, but we want you, because when you're in the media or you're being seen, that's when people want to invite you. And then I made peace with it. And I said, okay, well, if this is my role, this is what I need to do through my work and I'm getting this opportunity to talk about these issues. So I will become a catalyst and I will try and talk about things that I have learned through my many activist friends and through my observations and learnings. So I think both are important. Art is a powerful tool because it goes into your subconscious in a very subliminal way. When you watch a film, you watch a play, you may not say that, okay, these are the 5 films that have changed my life, or this play or this article or this person. All of these interactions and the stimulations that we take, because they are strong and powerful, they get stored somewhere in your subconscious, and your responses, they start impacting your response. For instance, I feel that my core is the same in all these years. Like 30 years ago, I was the same person in the core, and yet I know I'm not the same person. Today, I am a different person. My responses to things are different because they've been informed by maybe the article that I've read, or a book I've read, or a play that I watched, or a film that I've seen, or a music that I've heard, or various other people that I've met. So these are not tangible things, but they do impact. And the reason we know that for sure is because the conservatives, the orthodox, are very threatened by it. That's why they want to ban a book, they want to censor a film, they don't, they want to tear a painting. Why do they want to do that? I mean, how many people read, and what can a 2-hour film do? Yet they do all of that because they know that it impacts you deeply. So I think art is a powerful tool, or at least that's what I have to tell myself to keep carrying on in this world.
No, I would agree with you entirely, because all of us have experiences. Somebody will stand on the stage and give a 1-hour lecture, and somebody will just sing a song.
Yeah, and it just touches your soul.
And people start crying.
Yeah.
So art is very, very,
very
powerful.
powerful. And beyond language and beyond country, like we can watch films in another language, because and we may not understand all the nuances and the references, but at the core, the thoughts are universal, the emotions are universal, so it touches us. Sorry, you were going to say something?
No, I agree with you entirely.
And activism, I mean, when people put themselves out there and they are doing something, somebody's fighting the good battle for us, so that we can have a good life, so that we can have the freedom to speak and think, and we don't live with all those hypocrisies. So, everything is needed. Somebody who sits there and creates those policies, or a lawyer who, files an PIL and fights a good legal battle, to a teacher who encourages a love for a subject. We undermine our teachers, for instance. We have never really given them the respect that good teachers deserve. So I think everybody has a role to play, as long as we can play it honestly and with integrity.
I'll ask the next one. Yeah,
sure.
Nandita, one is you have used your art to campaign in a very strong way, I would say. But at the same time, in the Hindi film world, what is your experience? Have you had personal experiences where, for a role, people are looking at color and discriminate against you just simply because of color or any other kind of discriminatory attitudes?
So, because my first film was Fire and I was already very vocal, and because I didn't want to really be an actor, I was a hesitant actor for the longest time, and even now I see it more as an interest. Not too many people messed around with me. I didn't have to go through any casting. I didn't go and meet any directors to say, okay, give me this role or that. So I didn't have to go through too much. But when I did a role of a rural woman or a slum dweller or a lower class or a lower caste woman, then it was fine. Because my color was perfect for that. But the minute I had to do a role of an educated person, an upper middle class or an affluent person, somebody higher up in the crew would come and say, I know you don't like to lighten your skin, but in this role, there is an expectation, and it'll be better if you can. Gore gore gaal hone chahiye. Tabhi wo believable hoga that you are a upper class or an upper caste or an educated, or so in a way they want to perpetuate the stereotype. And they feel that this is how people will accept. This is what people would they would find it more believable. So I've had to fight some of those battles. And sometimes they have agreed on set. And when I've seen the film, I'm like 3 shades lighter. Because in the post-production, they didn't have to take my permission. I've had magazine articles about the Dark is Beautiful campaign and India's Got Color. And the whole article is about that. And my photo has been lightened 3 shades. And thodi lipstick laga dete hain, and 3 shades mujhe lighter kar dete hain. And they think they're doing me a favor, by the way. Because they say, oh, we will make you look more glamorous, So, and glamorous, beautiful, all of these are euphemisms for basically lighter skin. So, kya kare?
It's really terrible.
It is an incessant battle everywhere. I enter a shop, and they give me a cream and they say, you know, इससे tan निकल जाएगा आपका. I say, भैया इसी tan से पैदा हुए हैं, इसी tan में मरना है. If anything remotely has a whitening property, don't even show it to me.
We need more of that. We need more of that kind of messaging. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I want to move on to another subject with your film Firak. Now, you really looked at sectarian violence, and those films are really kind of very powerful, and also very confrontative when someone watches it. You know, it makes you question yourself. So what made you take up these issues, and what was your experience while making the film, and what kind of feedback did you get about it?
Well, that's a long story, but I'll try and be as brief as I can. So this was in 2005 that I started actually working on Firak. I had done about 10, 12 films by then, and sometimes if I was on a set where I thought the film was going to turn out a certain way but didn't, and I thought, oh, it would be nice to be able to direct. I think I could do that better. Sometimes, you know, even if you can't do it better, you have that feeling. And I started working on a script about a couple, about a relationship. And then in 2002, the Gujarat riots happened, and it was the first time that we saw 24/7, you know, with NDTV becoming 24/7 television channel, we saw live images. And they were really scary. It was almost like, not that riots hadn't happened before. There was Bhagalpur and Muzaffarnagar, and, you know, 1984, the carnage in Delhi that had happened against the Sikhs. So and partition, of course, there were all these vivid stories. But somehow, just seeing those images, and a lot of my friends were working in Gujarat at that time. I didn't even go to Gujarat till about 6 months. I was like, what do I go and see and do what? What do I have really to offer? I don't want to do some activist tourism of just going there. And I think it just sort of deeply impacted me, and I just felt that have we become so deeply prejudiced against a community that we are really ready to mark their houses and burn them down. There were restaurants which were co-owned by Hindus and Muslims, and they were being burned down to teach a lesson to the Hindus not to partner with Muslims. And there were these parchas that I had seen where do not buy anything from a Muslim, do not, you know, give your daughter to a Muslim, and all kinds of stories. And I thought, wow, is this for real? I mean, in our time, this is happening. So it deeply impacted me. At the same time, I didn't want to tell this story as a blame game, blaming anybody or even the government or whatever in particular, because what has always been of great concern is our own selves. Because if we are not prejudiced, nobody can make us prejudiced. You know, if you don't want to be discriminatory, then you won't. If it's not in your heart, if you're an empathetic person, you will have that empathy. If you have certain understanding of a situation, that will remain with you. So I wanted to make a film about what happens when the obvious violence finishes. Because while the violence is there, of course, all the heinous things had happened, burning of houses, killing of people, gang rapes, and, you know, all kinds of horrendous stories that were coming out. And 6 months later, when I went there, I was completely in shock when I went to those relief camps. And, you know, I came back very sort of broken. I remember I went to a women's group, and I was trying to tell them, you know, to be strong and all of that. And at one point, I broke down. And it was really crazy because all these women started consoling me and saying, oh, but you still come from Delhi and it's so good that you're standing with us. And, you know, they were doing some kind of a sort of consolation to me for as if making me feel better. And here there was this grandmother who had a 2-year-old daughter and said, you know, both her parents are dead and I have to live for this child. And that child just kept looking at me vacantly. And those vacant eyes kept haunting me. And I said, I want to do a film which is set a month after the violence. I don't want to talk about the violence. Anyway, as an audience, as a viewer, I don't like to see violence. I think we have glamorized violence too much. We've made it look so cool and so amazing. that it almost entertains us. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. So I didn't want to show any violence, but I wanted to talk about the lingering effects of violence that just goes on, whether it's guilt, whether it's anger, whether it's desire to retaliate, whether it's emptiness, whatever those emotions are. And without sort of, making those mega theories, but just seeing people. And I think it did create a certain empathy, even with those who had a certain notion, who were sort of right of center. A lot of those people started coming to me and talking about it, that it created empathy for those characters, irrespective of their religion. And I think that, for me, was in some form, I don't know, success, failure, too binary, but that was the intent behind the film. So, it was a struggle to release a film like that, and there are various surreptitious ways in which they always kill the marketing. But having said that, now it's on OTTs, and somebody put it on YouTube, yes. And I said, okay, let there be pirated or whatever, I don't care, people are watching it, and it's triggering some conversation. So again, sectarial violence is something that deeply troubles me. That we are born, I'm born in a Hindu family. I didn't do anything to be born in that, and to be prejudiced against a community or a caste or a religion just because they are born in another, or to make sort of sweeping statements, to think that your gardener or your driver or your doctor who happens to be of a community has something to do with some terrorist who beheads somebody 3,000 miles away or even in your backyard is just crazy. But that's because, we are not comfortable maybe with our identity. We need to create an evil. We need to create a demon to feel good about ourselves. We have to create a them to feel that there is an us. So, which is really tragic. So I think in some sense that has been a theme in my work about discrimination, and Manto, which I did more recently, or 10 years after Firak, because I thought, I'm not going to direct another film. And then again, Manto happened. I was just again very drawn to what he talked about and the time of partition. And I felt that you could respond to today by talking about a film that was set then, and yet nothing really has changed because we haven't learned enough from our history. So in some ways, that is probably a recurring theme in my work. Issues of identity, issues of discrimination, prejudice, all of this are so deeply tied in.
If we come fast forward, one is when you actually are confronting and it's terrible, but then that goes away, it sort of recedes to the background. Mm-hmm. And then you see today, the latest that we are all faced with is a Tanishq ad.
My God.
So what do you think about, any comment, any action we take, there's a reaction and there's strong polarization in the society.
I mean, can we be honest here? Yeah. And can somebody raise your hand that if you felt uncomfortable with the Tanishq ad? I'm really curious. Yeah, no, but is there anyone who felt uncomfortable, who felt, no, this ad is promoting something that's dangerous or that should not be promoted? Or are we too shy to admit it? Because who are these people? I want to meet somebody who actually is finding an ad like that, which is a mixed marriage ad, but is about, a larger sense of harmony. Or I was shocked that an ad like that was taken out, and I'm complicit. I feel guilty that none of us did anything about it. I retweeted, many of you I'm sure did the same, but these are just very superficial ways of marking our protest. The fact
how important do you feel that we need to continue to protest? And that,
absolutely.
Especially personalities, people who are well known, because unfortunately we do have that situation where people who are better known, performers, artists,
they do have a voice, and they have a larger area of influence. So it's a greater responsibility in that sense. Yeah. But I think all of us, I definitely think we should protest. Otherwise, it's going to be at our doors. Somebody is going to come and tell you, why are you wearing a blue sari and why am I wearing a yellow kurta or whatever. I mean, it can be anything. It can be, why are you watching this? And it has happened, right? Young people have been told, why are you wearing jeans? Why are you, who are you falling in love with? Who you can marry? What you can wear? What you can watch? I shaved my head. I and Shabana Azmi both shaved our heads for water and we couldn't do it. And 4 years later, they had to hide and do it in Sri Lanka in another name with a different caste. So we have not protested, and now it's come to our doors. So, it's really up to us. Do we value our own freedom? Do we value our democracy? Do we think our constitution, merits upholding? All of these are questions staring at us.
You mentioned choice, what you can and cannot do. And unfortunately, in our country, we see that girls don't even have the choice to be born. Because feticide and sex...
Missing girls, as Professor Amartya Sen says.
60 million,
60
as
million.
the latest count, 60 million women are less. I mean, they call it missing girls, but it's not missing. It's girls killed.
Mm-hmm.
Basically killed, not allowed to be born. Through abortion or through a variety of means.
And it's increasing. Our sex ratio is dropping. And where it's dropping is not in uneducated, poor communities or those who don't understand, but actually educated and affluent people are doing the sex determination because they have the wherewithal to go and do an ultrasound or to even know what sex determination is. So it's actually the affluent and the educated that are doing it. What's the point of that kind of education and affluence if you're, whether it's dowry deaths or whether it is female feticide and infanticide? So I think we have to speak about these things.
Do you want to comment or suggest what is it that one can do? Like you said, ultimately it comes back to the individual,
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts on how we can...
I think one is, of course, your own life. And, oftentimes we feel that, even if I say it, what difference is it going to make? I'm just a drop in the ocean, The ocean's not going to change because of me. But then every drop does count. Ocean hasn't just formed on its own. It's because of every drop that the ocean exists. And also we see around us. We see women being discriminated, whether it's caste or whether it's, somebody talking to a woman in a sexist way or in domestic violence. I mean, there are various forms of discrimination that we are privy to. Do we stand up to it? Do we feel that, no, why should I say it's not my business to say it? Everything is our business, That's why it took a long time for women like yourself and many others who said domestic violence isn't a personal matter. It is a violation of human rights. Domestic violence is as much an issue as any other issue that concerns all of us. You can't say this is their issue, let me not interfere. Or who am I to say it? Why should I put my neck on the line? We have to ask ourselves our own conscience. Because finally, we only have ourselves to answer. We can't agree with all these great thoughts as ideas and not do it in our life. And when you make those choices, when you really stand up to something that's wrong, and you will face problems. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy path. You will face problems from your family, from your friends, from your peers. You will be questioned. You will go back 2 steps. You will rethink about it. But if you have strong convictions, the courage will automatically follow. You don't need to look for courage. Just make your convictions strong. And once your conviction is strong, you will see you don't have to give long lectures to anybody. Just having a strong, when you're steadfast in what you believe in, when you politely and gently and firmly say what you believe in, people, even those who are just silently observing you, will gain strength from you and will change their lives. And there is a rippling effect. Otherwise, how are things changing? All our great-grandmothers and grandmothers were different, right? In the sense many of them had ghungats, maybe they didn't speak to a man looking into their eyes, they didn't work. We don't know the names of that first woman who worked, or the first woman who wore pants, or the first woman who drove a car. We don't know who. They were not Jhansi ki Ranis. They were just regular women who were nameless, faceless women who made that different choice, who sort of overcame those fears and who took that bold decision. So every woman who opens the door is opening the door not just for herself, but for other women. And I think that's why each one of us has this great responsibility. And we all have to, and I'm telling this all to myself as much as I'm telling you, that we have to keep doing that, otherwise it's a lost opportunity.
You have a son. Huh? You don't have any
10-year-old son.
Yeah. You don't have daughters, no? Yeah, I also have a son. So when we have sons, we also feel a sense of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Now, on the other hand, when we have daughters, I also always ask myself, will I really let her go out? I mean, I don't have one, but I think, would I really let her come home at 12 at midnight? How would I feel about it? So, what do you have to say about the whole question of protecting daughters vis-a-vis enabling? In our society, there's this whole thing, we look after wife, home minister hai, lekin ghar mein baithe rahegi wo hamesha, and that's considered to be protecting women. And we know that we want to prepare a young generation, a different kind of woman for tomorrow. So what are your thoughts on that?
It is a difficult one. I mean, the easy answer is, of course, you want to enable and, not just protect. Why? She can protect herself as well. But the fact is, yes, we are more vulnerable. Even if you don't have a daughter, you see your own life. Would you walk in a lonely lane at 12 at night? You wouldn't. Because you know that you're more vulnerable. The fact that, a woman can be raped and a man cannot be. I mean, I'm not talking about sodomism and all that, but in general, a woman is far more vulnerable. So you have to also make sure that you, don't compromise on your safety, but at the same time, this is constantly being used to kind of keep us in the homes, of not letting us go. In fact, every time a case happens, a violent case, whether it was the Nirbhaya case, and that was just, we thought was a tipping point, but we knew that was not the first or the last case. When I did Bhavandar in 2000 about Bhavri Devi's case, her case was also in public knowledge. She went to the Beijing International Women's Conference. It was as out there as any other case, but she's still fighting for justice. 20 years later, has she got justice? No, despite the fact, and there have been Asifa's case, and there is no dearth of, forget about all these few cases that have grabbed the headlines, but every single day there is a case happening, and not one but more. So, and every time a case happens, that becomes a reason to keep women at home. That's why I tell you not to wear this. That's why I tell you not to go out. That's why I tell you don't work. That's why I tell you not to study. In fact, after this pandemic, the first casualty are going to be women. They're going to be like, anyway, there are going to be less jobs. Why do you have to work? And we would imagine, I mean, do you think women in workforces over the years has increased or decreased? What is your guess? It's decreased, which is actually tragic. Right? Even in the last few years, from 27%, it's come down to 23%. And mostly in middle and upper middle classes. Because the question is, you don't need to work. When you put a man in a room and tell him that you're going to get your paycheck, but you can't get out of the house, would the man be happy with that? While many may work for money, they also know that when you work, you meet other people, you stimulate your mind, you get challenged, there are learnings that happen. There is a whole other benefit of being out there, and women are constantly curtailed and kept at home. Of course, there may be women who choose to be homemakers, and that's absolutely, there's no judgment on that only women who work are more empowered. Empowerment is really about a choice. But sometimes, as women, we internalize that lack of choice so deeply that we think we are making a choice, but actually we are not making a choice. We've been told so much about it. We've been made to feel guilty. You don't really need to work. The children need you more. Anybody can go and work. Your children are not going to have another mother. We've been given all these compelling arguments.
I'm sure many people here have heard that.
Yeah.
In some form or the other.
In some form or the other, you're told that, and then I see a lot of women who say that, it was my choice, I decided to stay. But now I'm itching to work, but I don't know how to work because for 10 years I haven't. I'm very hesitant. Will I be able to work? Oh, things have moved ahead so much. I don't know whether I can catch up. What's the point? Maybe I should just work from home. All these dilemmas, not being confident, not being sure of yourself. So I think we have to raise daughters with confidence, to of course be also careful, but more importantly, we have to focus on the men to teach them to be more human, to be more respectful, to keep their libidos in check, to see women as human beings, not just because of their gender, not objectifying them. So it is a very complex thing. No, there's no simple answer, and it sort of riles me up sometimes. I'm working on anger. I think anger is a negative emotion. But it just makes you feel that the fight seems endless. Because constantly, for some excuse or the other, women are being told to curtail themselves in some form or the other. And, it's pushing us further and further back. So we have to keep fighting. We have to create sisterhood. Women have to help other women. This people say, oh, but woman is a woman's greatest enemy. It helps to have these kind of
Usually the men say that always.
No, some women also say that. I've heard women say that too. Because I think women also internalize patriarchy.
Yes.
We are also recipients of that patriarchy. So we also sometimes feel that, but why is her mother-in-law behaving like that? Because she's also suffered. And it's a common thing. When you're victimized for so long, when you are in a position of power, you tend to victimize the other. So we have to, but nobody talks about the stories of sisterhood. The friends that we have, the people who have stood by us and the people we lean on, and the people that we have, women that we have helped. So we have to talk more about it, we have to do more of that, and not think that woman is woman's greatest enemy is the truth. There are various truths, and I think the other truth probably is much more.
True. And you have done some non-traditional roles, like directing films. And I'm assuming that most of the crew may be men. So have you faced any issues and problems, if you would like to share?
Yeah, well, I mean, in our kind of a class of people, it's not very obvious sexism. It's not very overt. And the covert one, the subtle one, is in a way more difficult to negotiate through and combat, right? Because if somebody is just outright sexist, then you can tell them to shut up and you can, put them in their place. But when it is subtle, then you're constantly thinking, oh, should I call it out? Or somebody's going to say, oh, please, don't be such a feminist all the time. Feminist is seen as a bad thing in our society. It's seen as this flag-flying, man-hating thing. It's not. Lots of men are also our allies, and, we need each other to be in it together. It's not a threatening thing. But, I mean, there wouldn't be feminists if women were not given the short end of the stick. Right? If the environment wasn't threatened, there wouldn't be environmentalists. It's because women have so much lack of choices, and we have got there's so much historical wrong that women have had to suffer. It's because of that all of us should be feminist. Even the men who care about a more equal world should be feminists. There's nothing to be ashamed of. So, but these subtler inequalities, for instance, if you're talking and if a male crew is talking, somehow they will take their inputs more. The language they use, oh, please, we are getting it, don't cry about it, don't whine. Oh, just the choice of words sometimes they use. She's being very bossy about something. I guess she has to assert herself to tell us that, she's the director. If the same thing the man had done, he's so decisive. He knows exactly what he wants. And actually, women make better leaders. It's a proven fact. It's a statistics. Probably because women are hesitant themselves and like to make it more democratic, like to listen, are more sort of better team players. That's why probably women do make. And of course, these are generalizations. I'm not saying every woman, just the fact that you're a woman, you would do that. But more often than not, women do make good leaders. Today also with the COVID-19, the countries where there are women leaders are actually doing better than many other countries. So I think there are those subtle sexism, even on a set. Sometimes when media is there or somebody's taking a photograph, they're like, oh, why don't you wear something which is brighter? I'm like, I woke up at 4:30. I've come to see my art direction. I'm not thinking how I'm looking, So there is this pressure of how you look and how you talk. And something like, for instance, I think aloud. I like to think aloud. And that's my process of reaching, let's say, a decision. And when you think aloud and you're asking questions, sometimes it's seen as you don't know what you want. So you still have to make the decision, but it's your process. You're asking, you're thinking, and you reach your own conclusion. So, but it's often seen as a mark of weakness. So there are many subtler ways in which you are kind of reminded that you are a woman director.
Yeah, you can understand. Yes.
Yeah, I have, at the same point, I have a question.
I think your mic's again. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Just hold it like that.
Yeah, as women, we play multiple roles all the time as daughter, wife, mother, boss, colleague, and others. And we try to ace every role, leading to pangs of guilt when we don't reach out our own expectations. So what is your advice on this matter?
Don't do it. Yeah, I'm often also told, it's amazing how you multitask and you're a mother, you're a this, you're a that. So is a man. A man is never asked this question. Yes. There are enough fathers out there, but because they are able to compartmentalize, they are given the space to compartmentalize. I would also love to focus and do one thing at a time. I don't take it as a compliment that I'm an amazing multitasker, which maybe I am. I don't know, sometimes I'm not. I goof up, I make mistakes, I forget things, then I curse myself for forgetting them. When you're working, then you're feeling bad that your child is left alone. When you're with the child, you feel you're neglecting your work. So I think, we are constantly seen as this six-armed Durga that we are supposed to excel. We put that pressure on ourselves, and others also put that pressure on us. And often we are told that, men in fact say that we never said that, she wants to take it up. But we also love those compliments when a man comes and says, even if 20 guests come, she will produce this amazing meal, or I only like to eat my mother's khana. I don't like to eat anybody else. So we love those compliments because it gives us a sense of self-worth. So I think it's important that we find what is it that really defines us. I think we don't spend enough time with ourselves. So we don't ask those difficult questions to ourselves. I struggle too. I went through a lot of guilt. In fact, this play that I did called Between the Lines was born out of that emotion, because I had been doing gender work for so long and talking about women's rights and telling all my other women friends that why do you feel so guilty and why do you do this and why is your life dedicated to your child and where are you in all of this, etc. And then I became a mother and I did all those things. And I said, oh my God, actually I'm a very, very ordinary woman here. I thought I was going to be this different kind of a mother, and I wasn't at all. I was guilty, I was juggling, I was angry with myself, I was angry with my spouse, I was just a terrible person. And that's why I did this play about a man and a woman who are both working and how they both internalize patriarchy. And it was about realizing how much patriarchy, despite all my work and despite a liberal household, where I had a role reversal, because my mother used to do 9-to-5 job and my father, I thought, cooks and cleans and for recreation paints. So I had absolutely no reason. I can't even say that this is what I saw in my home. I didn't. And yet I had internalized some of that because it was my conditioning. That is what my larger society had reinforced at a subconscious level. And I didn't want to be fighting all of that. I didn't want to become an aggressive person through that. I didn't want to throw away the nurturing qualities, that the feminine, as they call it, that we have, So I think it is very important that we give ourselves that time to understand that firstly, we are very hard on ourselves. Why do we want to be an ace in everything? Because we want to excel. We don't forgive ourselves easily. And guilt is an emotion that almost all women kind of go through, whereas men don't. I seldom see men around me actually. And guilt is not a positive emotion. I'm not saying that, yes, tomorrow men should also feel guilty. I'm saying that we shouldn't feel guilty. We don't need to feel guilty. To be able to do as well, we are probably in that transition phase. Because when I see little children, young boys and girls, they don't have that same, at least in the urban context or in the kind of schools they go to and the way we are raising our children, they don't have the same sense of a boy and girl and the roles and all of that probably we subconsciously imbibed, despite ourselves and all of that. I have a lot of conversation with my son. When he was really small, he thought there was a reverse discrimination because I was constantly talking about women, and he used to hear me talk about women directors and there are less filmmakers and women should do this. Once he started crying and I said, what happened? You are against men. I was like, no, I'm not. He said, you're only talking about women. Why should there be only women filmmakers? I said, no, there shouldn't be only, but we are like 2%. And we have a lot of these conversations and he sometimes is aghast, and once in fact I had a conversation and I was telling someone else and I said, at that time women at that time took this kind of imbalance, but in today's day and age, how can we accept this kind of inequality? And my son, who has his ears always perked up, as children do, he said, what do you mean at that time it was acceptable? Why was it acceptable at that time? And I said, that's true. In our conversation, we often say that in today's day and age, it's not acceptable. But we at some level have normalized that 100 years ago, people didn't know any better. 50 years ago, yeah, our grandmothers maybe did that. He was completely intolerant about the fact that why was it even right or accepted even then? Maybe if that time they had stopped, we wouldn't have had to see this time. So I have a lot of hope from the younger generation who do not normalize this inequality, who do not say, but yeah, that's how things are and it's not so bad, and my husband's actually very supportive. He picks up the children from school and he goes for football. The younger ones are not going to say that, okay, you're doing 9/10 of it, and that 1/10 you're thanking the man, like, please, wake up, So they are not going to do that. So I think we are going to see hopefully a more equal world, maybe 20 years or 30 years from now. But we can help in hastening that so that more lives are not gone.
The last question to you on this.
Thank you.
What is your idea of women empowerment?
I thought all of this was about that. I think it's a process, it's a journey. I don't think any one of us can put our hands on our heart and say that we are really empowered. You cannot use it as a past tense work. It's a journey. We are somewhere there. Some are a little ahead, some are have a longer way to go. But we can't judge anybody. My decisions and my circumstances are different from yours. Each one of us has to find, what is my path of empowering? Why is it important to empower myself? What is my value? It's not about I, me, myself. It's about a respect for another human being. If you don't respect yourself, you're not going to be able to respect the others as well. So it's important, we have a symbiotic relationship. We are all interdependent. This pandemic has shown us how deeply interconnected our lives are. I can't be safe if I don't keep you safe. If you are safe and I'm not, we all need each other. So I think it's more than ever we must realize this. And we must help ourselves to empower ourselves, and we must help others. In helping others, we are also empowering ourselves. In empowering ourselves by just the rippling effect, we are also empowering others. So I think it's a journey, and as long as we are all on that journey and in that direction, we are fine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Over to...
I'm going to put on my mask now. I've been without it, breathing away.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will not, I'm supposed to sum up, but I will not repeat everything that you have said. There's no point, since everyone's heard what you said. Just to pick up on the main points. One, I think all of us in our families have a responsibility towards our children so that they think differently, that they are less prejudiced, that they are less discriminatory, they are more empowered, whether it's a boy or a girl.
Can I just say one thing there?
Yes.
That, we want our children to be less discriminating, or forget less discriminating. We want our girls to be feistier, we want our sons to be empathetic. But if we behave in a different way, they are not just listening to us, they are watching us, they are observing us, they are seeing our discrepancies, our hypocrisies. So I feel if we work on ourselves, if we become the person that we want them to be, they will imbibe from us. Sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that was a very, very important thing to say. And just to continue in the same lines, I think all of us in this room at some point of time or the other would have heard comments about how we look, good or bad or whatever. I think that's something about which we have to be very conscious and to make sure that our daughters don't pick up the same kind of prejudices.
The burden of looking
having
good
to prove how you look, how you are, blah, blah, but rather to become people, rather to become the kind of person that she wants to be. Finally, I would say that as you have put it beautifully, we all are on a journey to empower ourselves, and there's really no end to that. I think step by step, we move forward in the best possible way. And the best example I have of that is the single women in the villages, We have Raksha Bandhan, Rakhi, and the women decided that they will tie Rakhi to each other. Because they are protecting each other. They are not looking towards brothers or fathers or anybody else to protect them. They said, we will do it for each other. And that is a kind of empowerment process that has helped many of them to find a new livelihood, supporting each other, helped women to reclaim land from their in-laws. Sometimes when the husband has committed suicide, the in-laws are saying, we won't give you land. Tum chota bachcha hai, you'll take the child and go away, so we won't give you land. But it's other single women who've gone and talked to the family and made sure that she could access her rights. So I think this journey that we are talking about and the kind of discriminatory attitudes in all aspects of our lives, working together, understanding ourselves better, understanding each other better, that's the best way to go forward. So thank you very much. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can we have a big round of applause, ladies, for those feisty voices that deserve to be heard far and wide? Moving on to the Q&A. Ladies, as a precautionary measure, we are not passing out the hand mic along as always, but I've placed a standing one out there, so please step up and ask your questions fearlessly.
So Usha, that was a brilliant session. Thanks to you for this. And Nandita, as always, you've really enamored us. So my question to you would be, don't you think that more than women, it's the men who need empowerment, to empathize, to understand, to look for a more equal world?
Absolutely.
Because they are the ones who need to be taught, who need to be empowered. They are not empowered. And the responsibility lies with our generation.
Yes, I don't know if the word is empowered because they already have too much power. So, they are very entitled, in fact. They've taken their power for granted.
The power is external, but the internal power is missing, I think.
The empathy part, definitely. And, there are lots of men who are not, they're not all devils or they're not the villains of our lives or, our stories. Because they have been entitled for so long, they almost don't know, they sometimes don't see it, that they are subjugating or they are being unfair to the woman. They don't even see it as that because nobody has called it out. They just think that's the way it has been. It's natural for me to be doing that. What's the big deal? So we have to find firm, gentle ways of telling them. We have to bring in those allies. And I think in some ways the feminist movement has also, it focused so much on empowering women that we didn't do enough work with men. And I think a lot of work is needed, you're absolutely right, a lot of work is needed with men to make them also understand that they need to be allies, they don't need to feel threatened by women being empowered, that it's actually more fun to have a partner who's more equal than to have to dominate the person. But they don't know what that feels like. Like even whenever I've been in leadership roles in whatever field, I've seen sometimes even men and women, they get thrown off if you're very democratic. because they don't know how to deal with it. They are used to hierarchy. If you maintain the hierarchy, in fact, there's more comfort in that. But the minute you break it and you make it more democratic, people get thrown off like, is she being real? They start doubting your intention. You know, is it just posturing? Is she really giving us the chance to do all of that? So it's that we have internalized hierarchy for too long. So I think let's all also work on the men in our lives and to make them more empathetic and to make them realize that they don't need to feel so threatened by empowering if we get empowered.
One more point over there is that feminism has got nothing to do with gender. You know, there can be men who are more feministic than women. Because I've seen
Manto was one. I mean, that's one of the reasons I did a film on him, right?
Yes, of course. And that was a brilliant movie.
Thank you.
And it was an eye-opener. So men can be more feministic than a female can be, probably, sometimes.
Well, it's not more or less, yes. I mean, we don't want to generalize.
It's got nothing to do with gender.
Absolutely. It's just that largely because as women, at least we need to be feminists. But that's absolutely true. There can be situations where a man is more of a feminist than, let's say, a woman. Sure.
Thank you.
Because women are also, like I said, you know, patriarchy has also impacted us. We have also imbibed a lot of the wrong things from it.
True.
After all, there were lots of women who also voted for Trump. That should tell us something.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Ananya.
you so much for asking.
I think Devika is coming up for her question.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
You've been a great inspiration to me. I'm a
Thank you.
filmmaker too, so
Okay.
as a person and as a filmmaker.
Thank you.
So there's one thing that I keep facing, like when I stand up for something I believe in, like log kya kahenge? Like we don't believe in that. You can do what you want, but log kya kahenge? So how do you deal with that and be cordial and respectful about that?
I wish there was one nice pill that I could give it to you, and I would give it to you right away if I had it. You know your circumstances. That's why I said, how convinced are you? How important is that thing for you? Right? If you, like, for instance, they say, right, as a mother, if a tiger's cub, you know, somebody attacks the cub, the tigress will do what she can to protect that cub. So if there is a value that you truly believe in, right? Let's say filmmaking. Suppose, you know, everyone around you is saying, what filmmaking? It's rubbish. You're never going to be one. You know, everybody tries to be a filmmaker, but it's not that easy. Now, it depends. You might be wanting to do filmmaking because you think it's cool, it's glamorous, it's all of that, you know. Then your conviction, you will also realize that, oh, I'm not getting that kind of money that I thought. I'm not getting those projects. Where are those producers? I don't know what story that I should be telling. Will this work or not? But if you are a filmmaker who deeply is convinced about it, that film is my calling, or I'm dying to tell powerful stories. I love watching films and I love observing how films are made. I love observing human beings. I love observing life. You know, you have to be a keen observer of life and people to be able to make film. If you are truly convinced about it, you will find the courage. Log kya kahenge, wo logon ka problem hai na? People are not there to make films with you. You're not asking them to be part of your crew. So please tell them, say, thank you for your advice and suggestion. I'll think about it. And don't think about it if you're really convinced about it. So, you know, fine.
I'm not referring just to filmmaking.
No, I'm just giving that as an example. Or getting married, you know. Sometimes young girls are said, oh, you're the right age. My God, you're 38 and you're not getting married? Like, what are you talking about? You want to leave your husband? He seems fine. He's a good dad. He's providing for you. What? He's not beating you up? What do you mean you're unhappy? What more do you want? You know? And it depends. I can't decide for someone what is the right time, or is it the right time for you to leave, get out of marriage or not. When I got divorced, that's what people was telling me as well. What's wrong with him? There's nothing wrong. We are still very cordial. My ex and I, we have lunch together with my child. We don't have to become enemies. But I knew that, okay, the time has come that I'm unhappy. It's changing something in me. And I want to have a life where I don't have to deal with this emotion. You know, so the time was right for me. I can't tell anybody else. So each one has to find that voice. But when we say there is a gut, you know, we often say, oh, my instinct tells me. What is that instinct? Where is that gut? Is it actually a thing that pops up? No. That instinct needs to be honed. That instinct needs to be worked on. That instinct needs to be empowered so that your voice can tell you the right thing. When we say listen to your voice, and you may say, well, my voice, there are multiple voices. And it happens to all of us. But the more convictions you have, you will see one voice will speak the loudest. And then you hear that voice. So I know it's a meandering answer. There's no easy answer to it. But I would just say, just keep asking yourself those questions where you know what are your deep convictions. And if they are deep enough, you will find a way. Then you'll say, logon ko maro goli. In a non-violent way.
That I think was, in a nutshell, कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे, लोगों का
काम है कहना, छोड़ो बेकार की बातों को, something, right? It's that perfect song, yeah.
Anybody else coming up with questions, or have all your questions been answered?
Well, I've given such long answers anyway because I tend to meander and bring in various, because these are all sort of intertwined things. They don't have soundbite answers. So thank you very much. Thank you for being such an amazing audience.
Thank you, Nandita. Thank you, Dr. Rukmini. We'll just wrap it up in 2 minutes with some very deserved vote of thanks for our gold partners, Polman Group, for our branding partner, RBC Worldwide, our gifting partner, Pushpam Publications for the Blooms and Looms Memento, and Nishita Manne from Weave Smart for the masks in our COVID kits. So ladies, thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you once again for all those on stage. And till we see you again on 27th in a virtual meeting with Rahul Shivshankar, Editor-in-Chief of Times Now. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.
Yes.